Thank you. We had no executive session tonight, so there's no notice of such. And we're going to start off as we did at the last meeting with a couple of concise presentations. First, we're starting off with the new BAC instead of the old CARFAC, which Lauren Mulqueen is going to tell you about here in a minute, and specifically discussing directions on the infrastructure of sewers in Radnor Township. Lauren?
Is this
Welcome.
good? Thank you. Hello, Radnor Commissioners. Where am I looking? Is this my? Okay. Hello, Radnor Commissioners and community members. I am Lauren Mulqueen, and I'm here tonight with the rest of the Radnor Township Business Advisory Committee, previously known as CARFAC. The mission of our committee is to provide the board with unbiased assessments and non-binding recommendations of critical projects. We report to the board and we represent the people. For our project this year, we've been asked by the commissioners to assess the options for managing Radnor's aging sewer system. I'm here this evening to present a summary of our findings to date. For our project this year, we've been asked by the commissioners, Here we go. Over the last several months, we've gathered background information and insights from both internal and external experts to shape our assessment. We've identified the options and prepared a list of pros and cons for each, but we've reached a stopping point. We need more information to proceed. Radnor's aging sewer system consists of 135 miles of sewer pipes, many of which are over 100 years old, as well as 4,000 manholes, 4 pumping stations, and 1 mile of forced main. In 2019, there was an assessment performed by the Gannett engineering firm. While it did highlight the key risk areas based on size, age, and the material of the pipes, it was not a complete assessment, documenting less than 75% of the total inventory. Moreover, and most importantly, there was no scoping performed, which informs of the condition of the assets. Ultimately, no action was taken with this report. Our sewer system, though underground and unseen, is one of the township's largest assets. While we intend to recommend one of these courses of action, at this time we are not able to provide guidance on the best financial option without knowing the complete status of the system. These missing pieces of data are vital. Therefore, the BAC recommends as a critical first step in best understanding the condition of the existing sewer lines that the board commit to putting out a bid for an engineering firm to inventory and scope the sewer system. Further, we recommend the board consider the benefits of implementing an independent sewer authority for governance and oversight, given that this could be a multi-year project. In closing, I would like to thank the administration for supporting us with the information gathering and scheduling processes. I'd like to thank the board and the community for supporting and trusting this independent committee of locals who bring a wealth of business expertise and, most importantly, a passion for keeping our community safe and happy. To the board, I would please request that you advise on next steps, timing, and how we can help. At this time, I'm happy to take any questions. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to see it again.
Oh, sure. So this is just a snapshot from Dave, and so we can get the whole thing for you. It might be a little bit more updated. This was taken from him about a month ago. This is what we have to date based on mostly anecdotal and everything the Gannett team could pull together. Like I said, it's based on age, location, size, and material. Apparently the location isn't even completely accurate, but it's 75% complete. It does not include the condition, and that's what the scoping is required to inform. So that's the big piece that we're asking or propose that you put up for resolution.
Would you like us to have the conversation now about next steps, or should we put this on a subsequent agenda and discuss it then? What's your preference?
I don't know how this works, so you guys have to tell me.
So,
I'm up for discussion, Maggie.
okay. 6 years ago, there was a sanitary and stormwater sewer subcommittee of the board, which I was on, and we had asked, with the board's permission, for the original study that I think you're working off of now, which was the sort of preliminary one. Gannett came back to us and said, well, now we need to do a more sophisticated study, and it's, at the time, Steve, do you recall, was it like $600,000 they were looking for?
I don't know that it was that high, but basically of what Ms. Mulqueen is saying, that was a very high-level one. It told us age, pipe, diameter. There was definitely recommendation of a next step, but it was considerable, and that could be spread over a few years. It doesn't have to be at once.
I thought that it was in the $500,000 range-ish, but I don't recall, obviously. At the time, the board had been considering, at Bob Zinkowski's interest, selling the sanitary sewer system, which was going great guns in a lot of municipalities near us. Since then, I feel like there's been a lot of news about rate hikes that the buyers have put in place. The makeup of the board has changed, the manager has changed, not speaking for Bill about his position, it's just, he's not pushing this in the same way that Bob had been at the time. It would be my inclination that do not have the appetite to sell the sewer system at this point, and it would be my inclination that just sitting around, we pay triple every time there's an emergency repair, so we should probably do something, which means we probably need to get the next step survey, which incidentally I think we need even if we wanted to sell the system, because we need to know what it would cost to repair and what we should get for it. But my vote would be, let's get a quote and then ask for the precise information on what we need to get this done.
So, Mr. Norsini, would that quote be scoping the entire system, or would you, and Lauren as well, your input, do what looks to be a troublesome area of terracotta and do that would you do the higher risk stuff first or do the whole thing?
So I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but I would like to discuss this with the manager and the board. So there's a couple areas that were identified in the Gannett-Fleming report that we said we're not going to waste a lot of time on because we know it's over 100 years old, and the assumption is it needs to be replaced. So we would still, depending on which way the board wants to go, we would still televise that because we need to be able to locate it and locate all the services from everybody's home. Subsequent to that, there's a lot of pipe in the township that isn't that old, that could benefit from an assessment, right? And from that assessment, when they televise it, you get a report. From that report, you prioritize and you determine what and how needs to be repaired. And then we further spoke with Carfax, and Mr. Tate was there. Conceivably, you bring, there's an FTE that comes in here and helps us manage it from a bandwidth standpoint, all this work. Or my other suggestion was we could use an engineering firm such as Gannett-Fleming, where they handle the televising. They get the report, they prioritize it, they tell us the repair, and they provide the estimated costs. It eliminates a hire, and in that way, however much money you spend a year, you can. And if you don't want to, it just, we pull back. So, and just to set expectations, my thought would be for the entire township, that's like a 3 to 5 year time period, say doing 20% a year. And we would sit down very carefully and look at the start when a scope would be created for however you wish to proceed.
Madam President, if I could just add real quickly to Steve's
Please.
summary there.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank the group with the BAC. I apologize, it's going to take a little bit of learning curve for me to get that. So BAC. The amount of time and energy and effort put into this by this group has been immense, and extremely thankful for that. To Steve's point, or Mr. Norsini's point, I think if the board's so inclined, putting together the scoping information, Commissioner Myers, that you asked about, what I think we could do is go back with the BAC, and take a look at the system as it is now and put that scoping document together. I'm not, Steve may have a better idea, but I'm not entirely sure what the particulars of that bid would be as we sit here. The whole system sounds like is what we need, but there's probably some steps between where we sit today and having the entire system televised. So just making sure that we sit down with the BAC, understand what all those different steps are, and are moving in a direction that is cohesive between our two groups. So we're giving a pretty concise set of recommendations to the board. So that would be, from my perspective, the recommendation is for the administration to go back with the BAC, put together the scoping document or the bid document, whatever we're calling it, and then come back to the board with what that looks like prior to actually putting it out on the market.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Radnor?
Sure. Mr. Norsini, the map. So what is the first thing, the DIP, or what is that D? I read it, but I still couldn't read it.
Ductile iron pipe.
Ductile iron pipe, okay. And then what's transite?
That is asbestos cement pipe. That's a brand name for a type of pipe.
And the other one is unknown. Let me ask you, how did they put this together? What did they do?
So,
Get Gannett, I assume, right? Was it
so
Gannett?
yes, so we have Roger Phillips from Gannett Fleming here on another mission, who I worked with in creating the scope for that report and who did the report. So we had our old GIS, which we used to a point, and that's where all of this information comes from, right? It really came from staff GIS, and Dave Kelly put it on our new latest and greatest. So, I mean, as far as Mr. Whitehead noted, it's no problem. I've written those proposals more times than I care to think of, but it'd be great to work with be great to work with the group to see what they think. I think we could have a good exchange of ideas from an engineering standpoint on what we need to see and what they feel that they need to see. And then the costs are actually in the original Gannett Fleming report. There was not items for design, but it still carries through to today if we use an inflation factor, right? Even though the report's older, the premise is valid to this day. We just need to update those prices. And that's a high-level look to tell the board of what that would cost, perhaps to Mr. Larkin, 600,000. I don't recall.
It's a lot more information than I asked for. So, so they took a GIS that was our data and put this map together? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And is there now additional GIS information that would flesh out the other unknown information?
That's what would happen if we did more televising and cleaning. We would have the exact type of pipe, the exact diameters, and there would be no unknowns at that point.
What did this cost?
So this was completely done in-house.
Okay. That was really what I was trying to get to. Like, where did that come from?
I thought Gannett did some high-level study that was in the less than $100,000 range.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about televising and cleaning the entire system, is that what you're?
No, like 6 years ago, Gannett had done a study for us that was a benchtop survey or something where
Yeah,
they just
Commissioner,
went
the
through-
study that we're all discussing here was approximately $96,000.
So as part of that study, I mean, can we use data from that study to build into to reduce the scope of a future study?
Yes.
Okay, and then, Bill, we talked about, the scope of the project. Can we ensure that the scope of the project is comprehensive enough that we're not coming back here in 4 to 5 years to do another study?
I think the goal is to, at the end of this, have a product where we have our entire asset televised and categorized so that we know its exact makeup, age, where we can then start putting together some sort of capital replacement plan. So instead of studies on the system itself, it's paying, as Mr. Norsini pointed out a bit ago, paying the engineering to actually start replacing the pipe itself. So a more long-term sustainable capital replacement program. So, I mean, that's a long way of saying yes. The goal here is to, at the end of this, to have the actual information needed to develop a capital plan that we can act on for the foreseeable future.
If I can maybe summarize a couple things. This map is the conclusion of where we are today, including what was done up to and including Gannett. This is the stopping point. So what we're saying is we need the rest of the information. It would be not only the additional 25% of missing pipe material, but a layer that's not there today, which is condition. Condition is not included anywhere in there, and that's what we need to, the scoping activity is to get that more important piece. Something might be very old and okay. Something might be not so old and not okay. And then to Steve's point, while yes, he's definitely the engineering expert, I think it's good to break it down into bite-sized chunks. So while we might decide to keep the system and to be proactive and come up with a plan, and that's when you would talk about rates and whatnot, but the first piece is just to scope it. And to get that statement of work in place, we should have definitely the engineers involved. We are happy to help, but we're not sewer experts. Maybe, I mean, we have some legal experts on our team, so we can help with that piece. But that's why we're also recommending the sewer authority. So if there are people involved in the community that are maybe not yet involved, but could be, that have some background in this and could support, then that would be your sewer authority, a separate group.
To just take this off, and, sorry, you go. I've been talking.
Just sort of a quick question. I'm not sure who would field it, but you know, the idea of going into sort of a high price tag. Maybe this is for you, Steve. Is there a way that we would prioritize? Like, can we chunk this up? Can we prioritize certain areas? Like downtown Wayne seems to have a lot of the flooding and backup. So you know where the hot spots are, of course, right?
So, like I had said, I mean, I really see this as a 3 to 5 year project, and we can't make good decisions without good information. We need to do an assessment of what we have, and we've talked about this internally for years, so this is actually music to my ears, to do an assessment. And when you have that information, then you can actually start to make sound decisions, as Mr. White said, from a capital plan, from replacement. We know we have pipes to replace in North and South Wayne. We need to move those pipes because they're in some very critically poor locations, and we don't want them there anymore, right? So we need to move them. So we can definitely sit down, come up with a plan, work with the committee, show what we think we should, where we should start. The bidding is not an issue. That's an easy thing. And like I say, I would recommend this be over a period of a few years, just from a bandwidth standpoint, and to make it so that we can act if you wish to act, because we're going to find some things we didn't know were out there. So then you would see me going to Mr. White and coming up to you folks for some money maybe to fix things, but that's a good thing.
To just go in a completely different direction, given the storm that we had last night, I would be fascinated if we could price into the project, and this is really a conversation for a much later date, but I want to broach it early. Price into the project the cost of, while we're there, trenching for electric so that we don't have power lines above ground anymore, which we'd have to interface with PECO about. I know we can't just do that, but if we could offer them, hey, we've got a trench right here for you pre-built, it didn't cost us all that much more because we were doing the street anyway. So, not necessarily looking for feedback, but I'd be grateful if we could continue to explore it as we move forward.
I wanted to point out, too, that we are not saying that we recommend to keep the system. I realize that most people want to do that, and that might be the ultimate conclusion. What we're saying today is we cannot give the sound advice that that is the better option without knowing the value of the system, and we won't know the value of the system without scoping it. So regardless of whether we keep it or sell it, we should still do this activity so that we know what we have.
Other commissioner questions? No?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Could you have to come up to the mic.
Hi, I'm Teresa DeLella, and I was just wondering if this includes because you said all of Radnor Township. I'm wondering if this includes the people in Radnor Township who still have cesspools and are not on the sewers yet.
So what street do you live on, ma'am?
Malin Road.
That's perfect timing, because we do have a report that was done to show what it would be, and I just spoke to one of your neighbors, so we'll talk to the commissioner, and we'll set up a town hall, which she wants to do, to go over the process, to go over the costs. So we're there for that, for you folks already.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your input. All right. We're going to move along to Park Mobile and a presentation. I'm sure Mike Maratia, Chief Flanagan, get us started on that.
Good evening, Radnor community and commissioners. We are excited to bring Park Mobile, a new phone app with a lot of features. I won't go into the presentation, to the township. This is a very exciting step and a very functional phone app to help attract people and make it easier to use our parking system. Do want to let the commissioner know we met and had an online meeting and an in-person meeting with the WBA, or Wayne Business Association, in case you're not sure what that meant to our viewing audience, where we had a very positive and strong response. The team that approached this, I'd like to acknowledge Amy Lacey, Mike Maratea, and of course our Park Mobile representative, who's going to get right into the presentation for you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry, huh? Good evening, Commissioners. I apologize if I talk a little fast. I'm from somewhere between Boston and New York City, so things come out a little funny, so if you have to slow me down, please do not hesitate. Again, my name is Mike. I'm with Park Mobile. I'm the regional sales manager for this area. Very excited to share this information with you, and at the end of the presentation, I'll actually walk through a transaction to show you what the customer experience looks like actually on the phone, okay? So just some numbers. Nationally, 60 million users, 15 million monthly transactions, over 500 municipalities, and 47 of the top cities in the world, the country. You see the airports and universities there as well. We have name recognition. We're ranked number 3 online on all the search engines. Adopted in 1 every 11 U.S. drivers. And the biggest, most important thing on this page for me is 25% of our users use our app across different markets. So whether they're in Radnor, drive down to Philly, go down to Boston, Miami Beach, wherever, they can use the same application and have comfortability with it. You see the markets we're in, the top markets on the right there. We are saturated on the East Coast, and then we move west. And then locally, some zip codes there that you should recognize. And in Wayne already, without even being live and active, there's 13,000 registered users with Wayne zip codes, Wayne and Radnor zip codes. You see Haverford and Bryn Mawr there as well. So the footprint's already there. They're already using us. Okay. Zone parking is what we call it, on-demand, metered parking. You can call it a million different things. But some of the features that I can't go over on the phone, but I'll go over it with you here. Find my car. First time in town, go out to dinner with some friends. Don't remember how to get back to the lot or the space you parked in. Just hit the Find My Car. It's going to give you step-by-step back to your vehicle. If you have any gate access, we could give you gate access, but we're going to give you notifications. Your parking is about to expire, things like that. Also, notifications if something is wrong with the parking area. Construction, free for the day. Anything that you need to get across to the users that are registered, that are not only zip code registered, but geo-fenced in this area. So if I'm in the area, I'll get the message as well. Get your account history. You can manage up to 5 vehicles. Phone number, we'll touch on that in a little bit. Customer support, we can also touch on that in a little bit, and extended time. So you can extend from wherever you are. At the coffee shop, getting a haircut, whatever, you can extend your time if you're about to run low. This is what the customer journey looks like. I'm actually going to skip right over this because we're going to do one at the end, so don't need to waste any extra time. Give you a couple different ways to pay. So app fatigue, somebody does not want to download an app on their phone, fine, you don't need to. Pay by web, pay by text. You can actually call a phone number and pay as well. Okay, so you can, any way that you're most comfortable with. The pay by phone number I like to talk about, because if somebody doesn't have a smartphone, because it's inevitably a question I get. What happens if I don't have a smartphone? Well, you can still call the phone number on the sign and make your payment. Okay? Easier way to pay, so like I said, you have your QR codes, which we're still up in the air about, but you have your pay by web, pay by text, and there's an example of a sign there. That sign does have a QR code on it. At this point, yours will not, but there's an example of one of our signs. App accessibility, we're working really hard to make our app accessible for everybody. So the colors on our app are colorblind friendly. So even those folks that can't see the differentiating colors on the screen will have the ability to use our application. Marketing, public relations, we have a full marketing team that works with your team here to determine how this gets marketed out to the public, whether that's in print, news releases, anything like that. That's a whole session that they work through. I know Mike and my team and some other folks that Mike's going to have on board for that conversation to get this rolled out to the community, including myself. I'm boots on the ground. I'll be out here towards the end of the month, going into businesses and dropping off some print. More on the advertising, so like I said, digital, social, outdoor, and influencer. We're going to get the word out every way we can. Geo-targeting, so we build basically a geo wall right around Radnor. Anything that you need to get out to your folks through this app that has anything to do with parking, you can do. You know, I don't know if we're in Eagles country, if the Eagles win the Super Bowl again, you know, you can put, you know, free parking due to, you know, Eagles winning the Super Bowl, you can put a message out. Pothole in spot 550 or 500, you know, don't park in that spot. So whatever the message is, you can get messages out to your folks. And then we have promotions. So our marketing team will work with the parking team here in the business district. If they ever want to run a promotion to get people in, if a new business opens, we want to get people to park closer, they can come up with a plan to get a promotion in. Again, that would have to go through our contact here, but he could deal with the business association, and then Mike and his team can work with our marketing team. And then engagement. So already have begun this process, you know, the awareness. So we provide all the signage, all the media, wallet cards, all your advertising. We do the welcome emails and the training of our system. We build all your geo-fencing, all your geo-tabbing. We do retention, so somebody parks with us, with you, using our app, they're going to get a survey right after, asking how the experience went. And we're going to take that feedback and share it, and if you get the feedback, you share it with us, and we work together to make sure everything's heading in the right direction. So, equitable access for patrons without smartphones. So the sign on the left is just an example. There's a 877 phone number on there. You can call that number, make a payment over the phone, and get a receipt text to you if you choose to. So you do not have to have a smartphone to use us. You can attach your PayPal. You can attach your bank account, a credit card, a prepaid credit card. You can pay with Google Pay, Apple Pay. Anything short of cash, you can pay through our system. That's it on that. Any questions on that before I jump into the actual customer experience?
I'm just going to ask a question or two that I asked you when I heard your first presentation, but just so the crowd can hear it as well. Will you still be able to use cash at the actual?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're an option.
Uh-huh.
We're an option. Yep.
Good. So you're just an option, but an option you can do when the rain is pouring.
Yep.
And you don't want to stand at the kiosk.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
But I don't quite get that. Is there a slot in there that you put a quarter in or put 2 quarters in or no?
So we're not hardware. We're simply software, mobile app. So the kiosks that you already have on the streets now, you can continue to use.
Oh, that'll be the same. Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's just to follow up on that. So this is in addition to our already in place kiosks. Our kiosks are not going away. You can still pay with your card, you can still pay with coin, you can still pay with cash, however you're comfortable doing that. This is just an additional option for the consumer to be able to pay that's a more convenient option for them.
I do have one question.
So,
I'm sorry.
you go first.
Mike, is this going to replace the Flowbird app?
It is.
Thank you.
Yes, and we will make sure that the community is aware of that, and then when the implementation is going to be in place, we'll make sure there's a smooth transition.
So I guess kind of piggybacking on that. So we currently have kiosks that is app supported by a different company. We're keeping the kiosks and just switching the company.
Correct.
So we own the kiosks?
Yeah, so the kiosks are owned by us. We're still going to be, our kiosks are still going to be supported by Flowbird and our company Devo that we work with in repairs and all that type of stuff. We're still going to be doing that with them. The only thing we're transitioning is from the mobile app from Flowbird to Park Mobile.
So
And they
other-
fully integrate too as well, sorry.
Okay, cool. I guess my question is, why are we making the change? Is it that it's sort of a better user experience for the drivers who are parking? Is it better for the township in any way? I'm just curious as to what the shift is.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. The first thing is, yes, it's a better user experience for the consumer. We want to try to make it as easy as possible. There's been complaints about the other app as the usability and how convenient it is. Tried working on a couple things, but this just seemed like a better option. Another piece of that is Lower Merion, Haverford, Philadelphia, a bunch of neighbors in our area all use Park Mobile. So this is giving people that already use the app the ability to use it in our town as well, instead of having to have 2 or 3 different apps on their phone. And then also from the township's benefit, there is a financial piece to it. If Amy wants to touch on that real quick, she's more than welcome.
Yes, thanks, Mike. Currently, the credit card effective rate that we are charged is about 32% from Devo and Flowbird. With Park Mobile, it will be about 20. So we will save there. And the ease of the app, we hope, will drive more people to use it, thereby making our savings even more.
That's what I was hoping to hear. Thank you all.
And another thing, just to touch on, I did have a conversation with Devo the other day. They understand the route we're going. Like I said, we are going to continue to work with them with the kiosks. We're very excited to continue that relationship with them. We just made it clear that this was the direction we chose to go, that we feel is going to be best for the consumers in the township.
And I was just going to ask one more follow-up. So given that, right, the question is really more about contract termination clause and terms, right? So are we at a contract inflection point where we can switch without any penalty? Are we going to have to pay them out the remainder of our other contract? And then second follow-on to that is, I'm assuming there's some sort of, licensing fee and whatnot for the app, or is it kind of a cost-neutral move for us?
Yeah. So I can speak for Park Mobile. The only fees associated with our program are the credit card fees and the user convenience fee. There is no licensing fee, there's no renewal fees, there's no termination fees, there's no other fees, no signage fees, setup, startup, any other thing you want to put in front of a fee, it doesn't exist. As far as contracts, I can't speak to the Flowbird contract, but most of our contracts are all the same. With the termination for convenience, there's no cost, but obviously Mike would have to look into that and check on the Flowbird contract.
Yeah, in terms of the Flowbird contract, we are not on a set contract. We're called a month to month. We can cancel it at any time.
Why no QR code on the sign?
They're easily manipulated, so it would be a big enforcement issue. So the enforcement agents would have to ensure that nobody's placing stickers on top of those. So you see in some of the larger cities, folks can get those printed. They can take a picture of a QR code, get it printed, and stick it right over the one that's already there. Now, instead of the money coming to the township, it goes to a Venmo account or it goes to a Cash App or something like that. Now, our QR codes, we have different little emblems in them that are hard to manipulate. We're still working with, Mike's still going through the implementation steps with our team. So I don't know if they've touched on that yet, but that was something that came into question early on. So.
Yeah, so I apologize for that piece of it. I actually didn't have a chance to tell Mike since he got here. I actually talked to our implementation team the other day, and we are going to go with the QR codes. We had an in-depth discussion with the chief and the manager. We do have, like he had said, there is a logo in the QR code, a Park Mobile logo, so it would be really hard to change that. We're going to have our enforcement team constantly checking signs as they're moving through, making sure that there's nobody manipulating the signs. And if for any reason we determine that there's any kind of an issue that could occur, we're just going to put something over top of that QR code of ours that we know is ours. So.
Double down on that. We have a back office. You have a dedicated account manager that is just, so if you ever have an issue, you call your account manager. You don't call an 800 number, get stuck in a queue, anything like that. So when we're watching and doing your financial backgrounds and we see that, 6 months in a row you had 1,000 transactions, and month 7 it's 250, it's a red flag, right? So we're going to bring it to you as well. So we're going to make sure that we're all on the same team to make sure everything's on the up and up. So.
Sorry, quick question. I know in like New York, certain spots of parking that's limited to like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you said you could add time, but then I know in New York you can't go past the 2 hours, even with the app or whatever. And I know we have a few spots, I want to say in Wayne or whatever, that are like 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have things that would take care of that?
Yeah, so when they set up, as they're setting up their equipment, what they're doing is they're taking whatever our rules are, which is, so we have some 15-minute spots, some hour spot, or 2-hour spots, and the 10-hour spots. That'll be reflected in the system. So when you park in a certain, whatever space you park in, when you go to pay, it'll only allow you to pay for whatever your allotment is. Now, if you're in a 10-hour spot, you'll have that capability to extend, unlike the 2-hour spots, which you're not allowed to do that due to meter feeding.
We build the program based off your policies. So it's the way you want it. There's no cookie cutter. Just how Radnor wants it is how Radnor gets it. So I'm going to show you the user experience. There are a couple of disclaimers.
Let me just ask one question.
Oh, I'm sorry, go
Because it
ahead.
may be a different time to ask it about data and keeping data. Is that now, or is that a different part of this
So-
presentation?
There's no, what type of data? So
The user's data.
we don't collect data. We're basically, the account, we have the account. So on the account, it's basically an address, a phone number, and they enter their credit card information, but that's all encrypted, level 1 PCI encrypted, so we don't even see the credit card number.
Have you had any data breaches?
No. Nope. Not in this country, no.
Oh.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
'Cause I don't.
Yeah, you know, in full disclosure, so we're owned by Easy Park. Easy Park is run in Denmark. They did have one, and that was some time ago, but has not affected us here in the United States. So,
Have you ever had any problems with people being towed?
so I'm glad you asked that question. Let's talk about that. So the biggest complaint we get is the wrong car was selected in the app. So we'll get calls that my Volkswagen Jetta got towed, and we tell them, that's great, but you parked an F-150. You didn't park a Volkswagen Jetta, you picked the wrong car on the app. So now, on our app, it gives you like 3 chances to make sure that you've parked the right car before you actually finish your transaction, because that's the biggest call we get with tow. The other one is, you know, we're not the enforcement. You know, we're basically just the merchant account, right? So if enforcement tows a car, you have to start there, right? Figure out what happened there before you come to us, because, like I said, we're literally just the merchant.
And also, if I can add in, Commissioner, we don't tow vehicles, so it kind of ends the discussion. Unless you're blocking an egress for emergency services, all you get is a citation. Even if you enter the wrong, we do not tow vehicles from our parking spots.
Okay.
All right. So a couple disclaimers on this. The geo fence isn't built yet. It's built. It's not active yet because you're not live yet. If we put it on the app, people could start to pay now, and it'd be crazy because it's not all ready yet. So when you got to this page, it would already know that you're in Radnor. So you'd pull into a spot, and it would be able to tell you exactly what spot you're in, and you'd be able to start your transaction. So if I have to pick one. So Radnor Township. So now it's going to bring me to the time selection. So if I pick, I want to stay for 30 minutes, I set the duration. It's going to tell me it's going to cost me 60 cents. That includes your fee. So that's your parking fee plus your convenience fee, okay? Tells you what license plate you're using right there. I only have one car, so it's not going to ask me. I only have the one on there. So now it's going to give you your option of, your confirmation, your time, how you're going to pay, what your price is, and the car that you're using. Go through the whole process, double-click to pay with your Apple Pay. Wants to look at my face. Done. And I have a running clock. I know I have 30 minutes. Okay, so because we're not fully active yet, I don't have the Find My Car because, like I said, the geos aren't built yet. They haven't put the extend your time in, so all that would be on this page. Your extend your time, Find My Car would all be on this page. Oh, the extend is there, I'm sorry. Tells me I have 15 minutes remaining. When this gets down to, I think it's like 7 minutes, it's an oddball time, 7 minutes, it'll say time expiring, either extend or head back to your vehicle. That way, it keeps you on the path to no citations. The reason this is running, so it can't be screenshot, so somebody else can't have it. This will keep all your transactions. If you travel for business or you need receipts, you can get everything right through your app. You'll have your history. As a township, you get something called, it's a horrible name, it's called a judicial portal. And what that will do is it'll show you all the transactions, right? It won't give you any customer information. It'll tell you that gives you a license plate. License plate ABCD PA with a red F-150 parked from this time to this time in this zone. That way, if you ever have any issues with people saying that I wasn't there, things like that, you have that full backup as well. So, sorry about that. But that's really the customer experience. It's quite simple. There's not much to it. Again, like I said, it's an option. It's going to not allow you to transact on days where there's no parking. So if you try and park on a Sunday, it's going to say no need. If you try and park past 6 o'clock, it's going to, whatever the verbiage is, it'll say, no paid parking necessary, things like that. So it's quite a simple process. And if there's any more questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, I know everybody wants to stop talking about parking. That's fine.
I do have two quick things to add just for understanding on everybody. So if you've used Park Mobile before, you may see that there's a zone. Because we're pay by space, the way that we are going to have it set up is your zone is your parking space, and the signs are going to reflect that so people understand that. So like as Mike did, if you saw on the app, he put in 55, I believe it was, and it brings up space 55. So your zone is your space. So it's still very simple, easy to do. Other than that, the only other thing I had was, as we all know, you have the free time on the back end when you pay at the kiosk. That is still going to be in place with this. It's the exact same.
Thank you. I was worried about that 10 minutes.
You'll get it.
The most important thing in my mind is nothing really changes for your folks other than the app that they're using. It gets easier, but the space numbers are staying the same, the enforcement rules are staying the same, so everything, it's already in place. So.
Thank you. So it's just a matter of advertising it now when we get there. So, perfect. Thanks so much.
Madam President, if I could, but Michael, just real quick, can you just give a 2-second update on the implementation timetable?
So I can. I know Mike's been.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mike has a call with them actually on Wednesday. That's the marketing call.
Oh, yeah. Right. So we have a marketing call on Wednesday, which is going to get that squared away. Start getting the ball rolling with that. We're still shooting. We're shooting for April 1. Once we have that confirmed, we'll get that word out there. But that's our goal as of right now is April 1.
I will be back for another round of advertising, boots on the ground. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to public participation. This is the first public participation of the night. You're welcome to come up and speak about anything you would like to. If it's an agenda item later, you might want to wait until that comes up, but that's up to you. Any takers? Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I wanted to let you know that item E, I have a request to table that item just to get a little more information about it from Mr. Tate. So we're going to table item E. I need to vote on that, don't I? Yeah, so can I have a motion? A second? Second. And let's have a vote. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Okay. Now, is there any item on the consent agenda that a commissioner would like to pull? Seeing none, can I have a motion to pass the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second? Okay. Any public comment on any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Okay. I've got to get to the business agenda. Item A is Resolution 2024-42, a resolution of the Township of Radnor, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, repealing Resolution 2021-01, which established the Citizens Audit Review and Financial Advisory Committee, otherwise known as CARFAC, and establishing a Business Advisory Committee. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Second. Okay. Who wants to start us out on this one? Mr. Tate?
Madam President, sure, I'll jump in.
Thank you.
So in 2011, the board adopted the original resolution forming CARFAC, Citizens Audit Review Financial Advisory Committee. Over time, we saw a little bit of, there was a separation of duties, if you will, and In 2022, the audit committee was established, and that entire function was then carved out from the responsibilities of the existing CARFAC group. So almost, I guess, organically, this led us to making a change, just really primarily in the name, so that CARFAC is no longer existing as the Citizens Audit Review Financial Advisory Committee. Audit Committee has taken over the audit function, and this resolution will now define what is proposed to be called the Business Advisory Committee. And also included, there was a draft of their charter or their mission statement outlining their role and their function and how they would operate in the township. Very similar to how the previous CARFAC worked. And of course, working and reporting to the board and working on projects as assigned and designated by the board. So this is a step really kind of formalizing a path that we've been on for the past couple of years, and making the change appropriately.
Thank you. Helpful, nice summary after Lauren's presentation. So is there any commissioner comment? Commissioner Abel?
Just want to be clear on, so the name changes, but is that the only change? Like how are meetings conducted? Are they still recorded, or are meeting minutes filed?
When there are formal meetings, the formal public meetings will be recorded and there will be minutes taken. The work group meetings, which is oftentimes when maybe not a full quorum of the board is, or the committee gathers, those are more ad hoc and planned at the availability of the members to do some of the more heavy lifting and analytical work. But there will be a public meeting held with minutes taken on a regular basis.
So what's the breakdown between formal meetings and ad hoc meetings?
The formal meetings, as was originally proposed and scheduled with CARFAC, was a quarterly meeting, so 4 meetings per year. The ad hoc meetings, there's currently nothing scheduled, but the committee will schedule them as needed. Sometimes during the day, they've come in, met with Mr. Norsini, myself, on the sewer project. So those are more fluid and will be, they'll be scheduled based on the availability of the members in the committee to do some of the heavy lifting.
So under this resolution, the group is still only required to meet 4 times per year?
I would propose that we follow the same rule. That can change if the board is so inclined to change that part of it.
No, I'm just asking for clarity. So under the resolution, they'll still be required to have 4 formal meetings per year?
We can still follow that same charter, yes, for quarterly meetings.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comment, questions? Public participation on this issue? Seeing none, let's take a vote. All in favor of Resolution 2024-42? Unanimous. Item B, Resolution 2024-37, Final Land Development Plan Approval for 150 to 168 East Lancaster Avenue, apartments and retail stores. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second. Thank you. Mr. Caniglia.
Evening, Nick Keneally, representing the applicant on this. You've seen this matter several times. I have reviewed the resolution with the applicant together with the consultant letters. We are in agreement with all the conditions and will comply with all the consultant letters, would request approval of the final plan. I don't know if I can go into more detail, but I know you've seen it several times, so I don't know if you want me to go into more detail.
If you wouldn't mind, just sort of location and purpose for the viewing audience.
Sure. This is located on Lancaster and Luella, across from Margaret Quo's, across from St. Mary's Church, on the corner there. Currently, it is retail on the ground floor and some old worn-out apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor. The proposal here is to have retail on the first floor. We're reducing the retail by a little bit, have the apartments on the second and third floor. All the parking for the apartments will be underground, in an underground parking lot under the building.
Thank you. Any other commissioner? Oh, thank you.
Let's talk about the, hi, Mr. Caniglia.
Sure.
It's my ward, so let's talk about
Sure.
the construction process.
Right.
Okay. So when do you think that it will begin?
I'll ask Matt to.
We are looking to demolish the existing building sometime this summer, June or July, and then start construction on the new building in the fall, September, October, around there.
So there'll be a lot of trucks and things like that, right? All kinds of construction vehicles. Is that right?
Yes.
Sure. And you know, as you said, there's that church right there, St. Mary's Church, which has actually two parishes, or if that's the right, not exactly right term, not constituents, but so there's the St. Mary's, and then there's a Liberty Church. It's a new one. So St. Mary's is old, but the parishioners are older than me, and Liberty has a lot of children, and so there's a concern with all the construction vehicles if they're going to take up the spaces, which was the indication, I think, in the last meeting on Luella, that it's not safe. And it's not reasonable if there's a funeral, which who can say when that's going to be, but thankfully. But, you know, so the spaces have to be left for the parishioners. There's the school, there's the middle school right there, and I believe some of the staff and I don't know if the teachers, at least some of the staff, park in those paid spaces, on Luella. So there's concern that the vehicles, whether this one may be large, in addition to, like, you know, a carpenter driving his own truck there and parking there, it's going to take up a lot of the space. In addition, St. Mary's is where is our polling place, and so on election days and that sort of thing, it's going to be a problem. So what's your plan to make sure that that's not a problem for the people on Luella and the people who use those churches and the school?
So right now in front of our site, I think there are 8 or 9 spaces right on Luella. Are you talking about those spaces, or are you talking about spaces like further down on Luella, closer to the school?
Across the street on Luella, because St. Mary's is across from where you're building.
Sure. So you're talking about the parallel parking spaces that are across the street on Luella
Right,
from
that
our...
are paid, you know, well, I guess they will be Park Mobile spaces.
So there will be in the land development plans, and I can bring it up. It kind of shows the limit of disturbance, the total area that we'll be disturbing on the plans. The existing parking spaces on Lancaster and the existing parking spaces directly adjacent to our site on Luella, those will all be within a construction fence.
Mm-hmm.
The spaces across on the St. Mary's side of Luella,
Right.
those would be unaffected so long as we don't need to shut down parts of Luella to do construction within Luella. The plans propose doing stormwater management in Luella, both underneath the head-in parking spaces on our side of Luella, but then that extends into the street, like into the drive lanes. So while that work is happening, I imagine the parking spaces right in front of St. Mary's, those would go away for the duration that the street work needs to happen in order to maintain existing traffic flow.
Well, there's a difference between having to go away because there's work being done and people parking there. Are you saying because your workers will be parking there, or because?
Are the workers going to be parking?
That's exactly
at
what
those
I'm asking you.
spaces
Right.
across Luella, not the access to them. So.
During the week and during construction hours, I anticipate that the construction workers would park the cars that they take back and forth to work in the public parking spaces on Luella or Lancaster.
And I understand that they're public, but I'm asking you to be a good neighbor and find alternative parking so that you're not in the neighborhood. So the people who use the church a lot, the voters, et cetera, are not driving. I mean, people have to drive around to vote. They're not going to vote. And the people who live on that street, what's that?
So maybe we just carve out Election Day?
Well, but the rest of the time too. I mean, if there are places you can park, like there's that building beside you that you're going to be, and has parking behind it. Is there places you can park so you're not taking up the street with all your parking vehicles? The church is concerned, and they're my constituents, so I'm concerned.
Sure. We haven't looked into securing off-site parking. It's really not something we've looked into at this point.
Okay.
I haven't identified any alternate locations that they would be able to park. If the request is that our workers aren't parking on those parallel spaces on Luella right in front of St. Mary's,
Right.
like that's something we can just ask or that's something we can tell our contractors that their trucks, their workers are not allowed to park in those spaces, and we're happy to do that. And that would require them to park elsewhere, like on Lancaster or by the train station.
And will there be large construction?
John, can we add a condition to the
Let
resolution?
me jump in. I
Go
think
ahead.
I think I have a solution.
Can I make a comment real quick? I mean, if it's public parking and they're paying to park there, I don't think it matters. who
It does.
uses the
It does.
space.
It matters to the
Because
neighbors.
At any given
It
time,
matters
there's
to the
gonna be
neighbors. It
people
matters
parking
to
in the
my
spaces.
constituents. It matters to my
Can-
constituents.
They're open parking spaces for public use. If people are paying for it, then they're allowed to use them, whether they're doing construction or shopping at a shop.
They're allowed for all the reasons. I'm asking for them to be a good neighbor, since they will be the neighbors. So please, go ahead.
One of the things that we do when we know there's going to be some heavy construction and it's in a tight area is, once the approval's given and the escrows are established, there's a development agreement that gets signed by the township and by the developer, and we've put parking plans in that. So my suggestion is that, you know, your plan, because your construction workers, whether you tell them, whatever you tell them, they may or may not listen to you.
Sure.
But at least, I would suggest you just take a look at where the construction vehicles are going to park, and have Roger or Steve or Damon or all three of you just take a look at that, and then we'll incorporate that in the development agreement.
Great.
So that certain areas are protected that need to be protected, and there's a plan. Otherwise, it sometimes gets to be the Wild West with a lot of construction equipment. So, I mean, that's my suggestion.
I'd rather have a plan in place rather than have to, when it's a problem, it becomes a problem and have to go back to you and back and forth.
But are we talking about construction vehicles or personal vehicles, like personal use vehicles?
Construction vehicles, any kind of construction
Right,
vehicle.
I think I was understanding is they're personal use vehicles, they're driving to the job site to
That's
get
both.
to, that
We're
they
talking
would
about
park in
both.
these
Yeah.
spaces.
We're talking about
Or are we
both.
talking about leaving like a front-end loader in a parking space?
James, I'm talking about all of that. The one person driving the pickup truck that's working on the site, and then the heavy equipment, just some idea where everybody's going to park. We did it with Villanova. We had a pretty detailed parking plan and traffic plan, and, this isn't that much more detailed, but
Okay.
we can incorporate it in the development agreement, if that's acceptable. Nick?
Great.
That's acceptable to us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I would be careful, restricting parking in one area and saying, we want you to park along Lancaster, because now you're gonna upset the businesses if you have people parking there all day, and those people aren't going into the stores to buy anything, they're there to work in construction. So, I understand what you want
Right.
to do and limit the disturbance to the church, but I think what I'm hearing is you're gonna tell them to park elsewhere. I think you're gonna be causing an issue for another business
Well,
owner.
I think that can be part of the development agreement, right? Where they can park or whatever. The idea is not to make it worse for somebody else, is to make it better for everyone.
But the cars have to be there, right? The people have to drive to their job, right? So they're either going to park there or they're going to park somewhere else. To Jake's point, there's going to be higher volume of cars regardless, right? So all you're doing is moving this disturbance to somebody else's. You're kicking it into somebody else's yard.
As I
right?
said, it's to make it good for everybody, so we'll come up with a solution that makes it good for everyone.
Okay, I think we're all saying
I
the
think we're
same
done.
thing. Let's put
No,
it in
I
the
don't.
development plan, and thank you for agreeing to be a good neighbor. So, Any other commissioner comment? Any public comment? All right, let's call a vote. All in favor? What? No. Resolution.
It's final.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
All right. Item C is a caucus. There are two coming up. I think we're about to start the Steve Norsini show. But this is preliminary final minor land development for 739 Darby Paoli Road. It's a lot line change to remove the property line between two lots. Mr. Norsini, is this you?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Yes, Madam President. I do not see the applicant here, but honestly, this is supposed to appear before you once. It's just a lot line change. It's a moving of a line on a piece of paper. Again, I don't know where the applicant is, but if you wish to step through this, we can do so. It is very minor, but we do need to the applicant does need to come to you to do this.
Okay, well, I guess he didn't want to talk before he comes, or he or she. My one question is why? Do they want to get rid of this line? Are they giving a reason?
I'm sorry, so they don't have to give us a reason, right? And I don't recall.
Okay, that's fine. I can ask the question to the person when they get here. So any commissioner questions or comments?
But Steve, and I apologize, I don't know all the intimate details of this particular request, but wouldn't it be appropriate to table this until the applicant does come? I'd feel much more comfortable with that than you trying to answer on their behalf.
Yeah, sir, I agree. I mean, I can't represent their plan.
Yeah.
So we can see them again, because I don't see the.
That's fine, it's just a caucus now, so.
So we'll
Actually,
just reschedule the caucus until they're able to make it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to table this because I do have questions about it for the applicant. There's my motion.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you for the direction, Mr. White. Okay, item D is a caucus again for preliminary, final, minor land development plan for 104 to 110 North Wayne Avenue. This is a lot line change to separate 4 tax parcels. Mr. Lambert.
Good evening. The computer's booting up, so give me 1 second.
So.
Right. Sorry
Madam
about the
President,
delay.
while Mr. Lambert gets that up. So there's a misnomer with the labeling. So for these lot line changes, it doesn't have to go caucus, preliminary, final. This decision can be made tonight. And that's what, and this is a good candidate for that.
So amend it to be a resolution?
Well, tonight is caucus. So there's no resolution prepared for caucus typically.
Like I'm just saying, it didn't have to be, but that.
Ah.
Right.
So we'll stick with caucus.
Yes.
Fine.
All right. This one should be pretty straightforward. So this is the corner. If you look at the bottom of the page, left to right is Lancaster Avenue. On the right-hand side is North Wayne Avenue. So it's the former jewelry store, the barber shop, Christopher's, and I believe it's Blue Elephant now. And really, we're not proposing any work. All that we're doing is creating separate parcels for each building.
Rob, do you know if this is going to create new tax parcel IDs and would result in a change in assessment?
I believe it creates new tax parcel IDs. The assessment's above my pay grade. I believe that the assessments stay the same and it just gets divided between the parcels.
My expectation would be that these are going to be reappraised, reassessed, because they're going to have new parcel numbers. And I don't know the last time they got assessed in the first instance was, which means that the number will probably end up going up, if I'm right about that. So
Yeah,
it might just be worth double checking.
I'll defer to you.
Well, don't, because I don't represent the client. But I'd just be interested to explore that if I were your client, and, but it does matter to us, but that's all.
So really, that's the extent of the plan. So we're just creating separate parcels for each building.
Mr. Lambert, at Planning Commission, we had asked that that lot line, the property line, be moved to the back of the curb for the parking area and that little courtyard.
So when you're saying
the bearing south 89 degrees, 35 minutes, 0 seconds east, 61.44 feet was going to be brought. Mr. Kearns had agreed to bring that back to edge of sidewalk, so that area will be deeded to the township.
I don't see any problem with that. That's it's all within, I believe it's within the right-of-way now, or a portion of it. But yes, we can make that adjustment.
So if it would be possible when you come back to have that noted on the plan, please.
Yep. And then, so in theory, we'd be creating 5 parcels, with 1 parcel being deeded to the township? Because the township doesn't, it's a PennDOT right-of-way, right?
Yes.
So it's a PennDOT right-of-way, so so PennDOT's going to own to a certain extent.
Both streets, yes.
Then the township. So is that via?
Because actually, if you look further up the plan, we had asked for that for all the parcels to bring it back, so.
On North Wayne Avenue, too.
Correct. What's in front of Pat's Barber Shop, Christopher's, as well as Blue Elephant, to clean that up.
So just bring it right to the curb line.
Right. That's fine.
Is it one owner of all of these?
Currently, yes. It's all 1 parcel currently.
One parcel currently. And does the ownership extend beyond this parcel? Does the same owner own anything else on that block?
I'm not sure. So this, the partnership that owns this, I believe, is a specific entity for this parcel.
Are they new owners of this parcel?
I believe they are, yes.
Okay, so somebody's just purchased the parcel.
Correct.
And they want to subdivide it into 4.
Correct.
What's the motivation for that?
I believe what's been relayed to me is that they're really just trying to separate the expenses per unit, and so allocating the expenses per the unit and making separate parcels.
Like utilities?
Taxes.
Yeah. But to maintain ownership by one LLC?
My understanding, again, I'm not the owner, we just drew the lines, is that they're going to create the 4 separate parcels for the 4 units. They're going to continue to own it. I do not know if they're planning to divest of any of the units.
Any plans to develop any of the individual parcels?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thanks.
I have a couple of concerns. One, Mr. Kachansky, perhaps you could help me with this one. The little tiny lot there that used to be Pat's Barber, is there a minimum lot size? I couldn't find anything in the WBOD, but it just seems so tiny.
I'll have to take a little bit of a deeper look into that. I would believe that was handled during the review process by Gannett Fleming.
I believe there is no minimum lot area.
There is no minimum, yeah. I couldn't find one, so, okay.
I have a question. So if that's all one lot size, and say Wayne Jewelers, and Wayne Jewelers part of it, and you were going to the editorial you, not you, redevelop it, because it's that whole lot is a large enough size that there would have to be contributions to betterments in the township, right? If that's a certain size, isn't that right? Yeah, Parks and Rec thing, right?
If they redeveloped, yes.
So if you just redeveloped the Wayne Jewelers portion and not the rest, would that alleviate you of having to make that contribution, or the amount of that contribution?
I defer to Mr. Rice, but I believe the contribution would be for the new space.
But I'm saying if it's all one space and you're only doing part of it, wouldn't you still have to make the contribution for the whole square footage?
Right now, if you look at the Gannett Fleming review letter, the Park and Rec fees called out. It's for all non-residential or institutional subdivisions or land developments involving more than 5,000 square feet of floor area. So I think this plan itself, Roger, would qualify.
It is required
Yeah.
by ordinance for this project.
Yeah, this, even though they're not proposing any new construction, the fee applies to this plan.
Yeah, the ordinance refers to subdivision or land development, and this is a subdivision.
So if you made it smaller parcels? Well, because you're making it 4 parcels instead of 1 parcel. Or maybe I misunderstand it.
The fact that they're making this 4 parcels brings in this requirement for
Right.
them to pay it brings
Yeah.
it in as under the ordinance, correct?
Yeah, it's a subdivision, creating new lots, or a land development, which is just a project on a single lot typically. It applies.
I have one more concern. With this being divided up, say the Wayne Jewelers, or just to use that example, wants to tear that building down and build a 2-story building there. I'm just making it up, but whatever. It is then a new development that would require stormwater, the whole kit and caboodle that none of this requires now. Is that right?
Correct.
Because it's a, and I'm just a little worried that the reason this is being divided is so that one of these lots can be developed. And I'm not sure that it would be so easy to do stormwater on these tiny little lots. I mean, I guess they'd have to cross that bridge, but it's just a concern.
So, Mr. Lambert, the general consensus was what was said at Planning Commission was the owners would provide an easement over those areas I spoke of.
Which is no problem.
Any other commissioner comment, questions? Any public participation on this? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Larkin.
It's technically none of our business, but I'd be grateful if you could just go back and talk to the client. I think that little jog from the Wayne Jewelers into the area behind the barber shop, you're creating this permanently tiny space, and you lose the ability to extend that back in the future. If there's any appetite to leave the buildings sort of logical so they each go all the way back, and then do some sort of a lease back for the existing property there, that would be my preference. But like I say, I recognize that's not really our remit.
I'll review it with them, happy to. I think the reason is for that now is just so you know, it's the interior space to the jeweler back there.
Yeah, it makes perfect
Yeah,
sense.
so the lease back, yeah.
Understand that it's set up that way now. I just feel like 20 years from now, that's going to be space that whoever owns what will probably be a restaurant there with an upstairs bar is not going to really have much use for that, and the guy who's going to be in front is going to be forever pinned in.
We'll review it and we'll be back since this is just caucus.
Is Korea Partners LLC out of Seattle, Washington?
No, they're local.
They're local. Okay.
Any further commissioner comment? Finally, public comment? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item E is an authorization to receive sealed bids for the 2024 Super Pave program at an estimated construction cost of $1,300,000 to be funded from the Liquid Fuels Fund. It's an authorization, so I guess I need a motion. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Norsini?
Actually, I would like to reintroduce Ben Wagner, our staff engineer. Ben will be stepping you through this with his PowerPoint.
Good evening, everybody. Like Steve said, I am from engineering department. Just going to give a brief overview of our paving program for the upcoming year. Before that, just a little recap of the past year's program. It was a success. We planned to resurface 31 streets, and 31 streets were resurfaced. And most importantly, this was completed within budget. Little overview for this year. Like it says, we are here requesting the ability to receive sealed bids for the 2024 program. We have a cost estimate of $1.3 million. And this funding comes from liquid fuels and county aid. A little street selection methodology. We have 26 streets planned and then 2 alternatives if budget allows for them. This totals up to 5.28 miles of paving, or 6.2% of all township-owned streets. These streets were selected based on need and budget, and streets needing utility follow-up are top priority. They are automatically selected to be included in the program. Here is a list of the 26 streets that we have finalized on. I'm not going to read through them all, but this will be included in the agenda packet, and it'll be posted on the website for the township once this gets rolling. And then here's the GIS map that Dave Kelly from our GIS department put together. We've got the streets chosen for this year's program in green, and then streets done in the past 5 years in blue. And it just shows what good impact this program has had for the township. It's a pretty good chunk of the township roads. And then the 2 alternates are in orange up there. And now I just have a few photos of some of our worst offenders. Arbordale, Cornwall Circle, Doyle Road, Grange Road, Highfield, and probably the worst I saw was Princeton Court. That's all I have for you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Hi, just one question. You showed us the last 5 years and this year. At the pace we're going, when will we have covered the township?
So I think, Steve, you told me the methodology a few years ago was $1 million could get you 10%. That unfortunately doesn't happen anymore with rising costs. Like I said, this year I think we're a little over 6%. So if we remain around that, it would be a little less than 20 years to wrap around the whole, our whole street roster.
About time to start at the first street by then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other commissioner questions? Commissioner Abel?
I'm sorry, I didn't see the 2 alternate streets. What were they by name?
They were North Bellevue Ave and Williams Road.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any further commissioner questions or comments? Commissioner
Just
Coates?
2 small things. One, in the letter, it shows 1.3 million and 1.1 million. I'm assuming that's just a typo?
Yeah, I think we discovered an extra 200,000 last second, and it might just not have carried through on everything.
Perfect, okay.
But yeah, it should be 1.3.
Okay, and we can submit roads for consideration as alternatives somehow?
We can definitely consider them. I think last year we ended up doing all 5 alternates, but we like to keep kind of a wiggle room in there because problems can arise and you can blow through more budget than you were planning.
I've just got one in mind. I'll shoot it to you guys as maybe something you can consider.
Yeah, send it over and we can consider it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? No.
Madam
Thank you,
President,
Ben.
if I just add real quick, first of all, great job, Mr. Wagner, taking this
Thank you,
over.
Bill.
We appreciate the work. One thing that it's important from the community's perspective and the commissioners too is when we talk about the time it's going to take to get through the whole township, while they're a headache while they're here, we do get half of a road everywhere that the utilities are at. So that does speed up that timetable to a certain degree that we're getting half of those roads. And it seems like they're here a lot and all over the place. So that does help speed up the turnaround time in terms of getting all of the roads in the town replaced. And then just a little bit more context on the 200,000 is back in 2019, the board then had borrowed a couple $100,000 for additional road resurfacing. In years prior, we'd only spent that money for the inspection piece of this project, which we will do again with this year's program as well. But the intention was to also pave some additional roads. So those bond monies were allocated or added to this project total. And that was done, as we were doing some of the final diligence on the project late last week. So that's a little bit more context there, that it's bond money we're using. And then lastly, I don't want to speak for the engineering department, but the road resurfacing program is a year-round program. We only are able to do the work in one giant chunk as we're going through now. But the evaluation of the roads is always ongoing. So if you see roads, please, by all means, send those in. And then we'll be sure to get eyes on them and get them graded accordingly.
So if I could add to what Mr. White said, so once they're on the list, once we've evaluated them and see that they're on the list, if they are a candidate and they only didn't make it due to funding, they stay on the list for the next year, so they don't go away. The only reason they would not get paved is either funding or they just don't make it up as high in the rating system. But we use Public Works, us, anybody who has eyes on roads. So fall is a great time to contact us because that's when we're starting to compile the list for the next year.
Terrific. We'll send it your way. All right. We need to vote to authorize this. All in favor? Aye. I think I skipped public participation. I'm sorry. I'd be happy to open it up if there's any public participation. All right. We voted. Item F, Resolution 2024-34, authorization of the payment of change order numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 to R.E. Pearson Construction Company for additional form liner, water pipe replacement, and improved retaining wall seal, and for tree removal for the placement of the Shimoni Road culvert and retaining walls project in the total amount of $18,232.74 to be funded from the Stormwater Fund. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Thank you. Mr. Norsini.
Thank you, Madam President. So I'd first like to say if the Shimoni Road culvert project is nearing completion, so if you're ever at Fenimore Woods Park and you park, you can walk down and see it's taking shape. There's just a few things left to do. So this was for the water pipe replacement. Was actually, we encountered a water line that was supposed to be below us, but it wasn't below us. So we had to do a little reconnoitering. There was additional trees that were not noted for removal on the plan that they just could not work the project in with. The additional form liner was to make some sections of the retaining wall look a little better. And the improved retaining wall seal is just as it says, it's a more robust seal for where the concrete meets the foundation to keep that watertight. So we respectfully request the approval of the $18,232.74 for these change orders.
Mr. Norsini, is that still within the contingency?
My apologies. Yes, ma'am.
I figured you'd say so. Any commissioner comment? Nope. Any public comment? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye. With Commissioner Abel off the podium. Item G. Oh, and I have to add, Mr. Norsini, that it looks really good so far.
Glad you like it. That's great.
Item G, Resolution 2024-35, authorization of the payment of change order numbers 4, 5, and 6 to Mecco Constructors Incorporated for basins SS-1 and SS-2 undercuts and for the restroom electrical service removal and relocation for the South Devon Avenue area flood reduction at the West Wayne Preserve and Friends of Radnor Trails Park project in the total amount of $127,980 to be funded from the Stormwater Fund. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second? Second. All right, Mr. Norsini.
Thank you, Madam President. So over at Friends of the Radnor Trail Park, what we affectionately call Fort, there are 2 underground basins. And in those basins, in SS1, we encountered a small area of unsuitable soil. But in SS2, which is actually the existing parking, will be the new parking lot for Friends of the Radnor Trail, we encountered unsuitable soil. So that when we say undercuts, that's where we excavate below the grade and we bring it back up with a geotextile fabric and a geogrid. So that's what those are for. And since the SS2 was under a parking lot, we had to be aggressive and robust with our repair to make sure it can hold cars. So we respectfully request the approval of $127,980 for change orders 4, 5, and 6 for MECO.
Thank you. Any commissioner comment or question? Any public comment? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor on item G? Aye. I think it was unanimous. Were you and I? Yeah, it was unanimous. Sorry, I just couldn't see. Item H, Resolution 2024-36, authorization of the payment of change order numbers 2B, 6, and 7 to RoadCon Incorporated for additional contaminated material removal, high-friction paving course, and a time extension for the King of Prussia Road and Eagle Road / Pine Tree Road intersection improvements project in the total amount of $49,956.16 to be funded from the proceeds of the 2019 general obligation bond. Can I have a motion, please? So moved. And a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Norsini, your last time up for the evening.
Thank you, Madam President. So this project is complete. It's been complete for some time. So this is the closeout where we are negotiating change order costs and finally nailing that down and bringing that back to you. So contaminated material, we did have contaminated material in the pipe trenches where we installed new storm sewer, and that cost, we had to pay that cost for removal. The high-friction paving courses, as you come down the hill, Cabrini on your right, towards the intersection, PennDOT, this is a PennDOT street, so PennDOT required that we put that there. So that's basically what's used in lieu of where you see streets that are milled for people to get traction. This asphalt product is specifically designed for that, for traction. So we had that added. The time extension is just that, so when things are encountered on a project, we don't pay the contractor for those issues. We pay them to fix them, but we only give them time. We don't give them money per day, right? We extend the contract so we don't encounter costs. So the total amount, and this will be to close out the project, is $49,956.16, which we request be approved by the board. And then once this is done, the maintenance bond kicks in, and then eventually the project will be free and clear of all bonds.
Excellent. Any commissioner question or comment? No? Use mic.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, Mr. Rossini? What's the total that's going to be due?
So this is the final invoice, right? This is the cleanup of the project.
Yeah.
$49,956.16, and we are still within the contingency amount.
Okay. And that's split 3 ways? Or no?
Great point. So once we get this paid off, we did get a grant for this project. It was actually led by Cabrini. So once we get this done, we'll be reaching out to Cabrini and Eastern, and whatever is not covered by the grant gets split 3 ways equally between Radnor Township, Eastern, and Cabrini/Villanova.
Well, I was going to say Villanova steps in for
Well,
Cabrini.
we let Villanova know that as soon as we heard the school sold.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comment or questions? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. All right, that concludes the business agenda for today. Next, we have reports of board liaisons. Anyone have anything to say?
There's a Parks and Rec board meeting this Thursday at 6:30.
I think they're talking Odoricio this week, right? Yeah, good. The other thing from the Board of Health, they are having a LGBTQ plus information session following the Board of Health meeting on April 15th, I believe. They changed it, had been a March date, but the room, I think we took it with a conditional use hearing. So it'll be after the regular meeting in April. And it's part of the continued Board of Health speaker series. Any other liaisons? No? Any new business? Old business? Final public participation? Seeing none, just hearing a little rumbling from the peanut gallery. I'll say time to adjourn. All in favor?